I am deeply disappointed by the intolerance for freedom of speech and the right to civil disobedience on campus.
Israel must immediately halt its military offense.
All right, I have a fever and look like crap, but that is not going to stop me from covering these two stories. One being this incredible speech from this Harvard grad, and the other being the recent ruling by, or recent being today, ruling by the ICJ. So let me start first with this Harvard speech. Now, this was the gates outside of the commencement on Thursday. Good morning from Harvard's commencement. Harvard funds genocide. There you go. This from the Harvard Crimson. Harvard Corporation rejects Faculty of Arts and Sciences' effort to let 13 pro-Palestine student protesters graduate. So there are 13 students that are going to be referenced by the student commencement speaker that are now not allowed to graduate. So that's despite the fact that the faculty says they should. They got rejected by the board or the Harvard Corporation, which apparently is part of a ongoing battle between the two. So opens up a new front in the internal battles, as the Crimson writes here. Government professor Stephen Levitsky warned in an interview on Tuesday that the corporation could spark a faculty uprising if it does not sign off on the Faculty of Arts and Sciences approved list of degrees for conferral. Quote, I would expect a faculty rebellion, possibly a faculty rebellion against the entire governance structure, because there's already a fair amount of mistrust towards the corporation to begin with. So this is just supposedly another example in a long battle between the two entities here. But this is the speech. I think I'll play most of it here. It's very well done.
This semester, our freedom of speech and our expressions of solidarity became punishable. Leaving our graduations uncertain. As I stand before you today, I must take a moment to recognize my peers. The 13 undergraduates in the class of 2024 who will not graduate today. I am deeply disappointed by the intolerance for freedom of speech and the right to civil disobedience on campus. Over 1,500 students had petitioned. Nearly 500 staff and faculty had spoken up, all overwhelmingly against the unprecedented sanctions. As an American and as a Harvard graduate, for me, what is happening on campus is about liberty. This is about civil rights and upholding democratic principles. The students had spoken. The faculty had spoken. Harvard, do you hear us? Harvard, do you hear us?
All right, so I cut a bit of the applause down there because it'd be a long video otherwise. It was mostly applause for the speech. But great job here. So this student is Shruthi Kumar, and you can tell it's not just the students. It's the students and the faculty that both agree on this. I mean, I just showed you the faculty tried to get these students to get to graduate, and it is the Harvard Corporation, the governing board, that is rejecting it. Now, here is there are protests outside or during the commencement while it was happening. Here's an image from the Harvard Crimson. They go on to write here, more than 1,000 people walked out of Harvard's commencement on Thursday, as mass discontent over the decision to bar 13 pro-Palestine college student protesters from graduating. So this is a video shared by Harvard undergraduate PSC of those protests. Now, here is an interview that Democracy Now! Did with one of the students that are not graduating.
These consequences are only exposing the rot that is, imminent to all of these different institutions and the ways in which they are sort of beholden to corporations, to donor pressure, to outside pressure, as opposed to listening to the very sort of rightful demands of their own students and faculty and members of staff that they have been championing for ages at this point. And again, the call for divestment is not new. Yes, it might have gotten newfound popularity in the last few months given the events and the genocide in Gaza, but at the same time, divestment has been called for years on Harvard's campus alone and has always been met with repercussions.
I find it interesting that divestment is seen as political, but investment is not. So, Asmir Safi, he's one of the main organizers around the petition to get Harvard to divest from organizations that are tied to Israeli settlements. This is a piece from 2020 from the Harvard Crimson. Harvard invests almost $200 million in companies UN list tied to Israeli settlements in Palestine, with a major piece of that being Booking Holdings. So in 2018, Human Rights Watch found that Booking.com and other services that connect travelers to accommodations like Airbnb list rental properties in the Palestinian territories. Quote, they basically broker rentals on land stolen from Palestinians who themselves can't stay in those listings. Booking, by brokering these rentals in West Bank settlements, is helping to entrench the settlement enterprise. So it's not surprising to see someone like this targeted because he was one of the ones that was really helping to organize the voices at Harvard around this cause. And when it comes to, threatening money, that's when these organizations get real angry. Now, here is the other story that I want to cover, though this one will be a little more brief, but this is the latest ruling from the International Court of Justice on Israel, calling for Israel to immediately stop military offensive in Rafah.
The court considered that, in conformity with the obligations under the Genocide Convention, Israel must immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part.
Now, yes, obviously, this is not going to stop Israel from doing what they're doing. But this can potentially change how other countries view Israel or their potential dealings with Israel. Also, as Heidi Matthews breaks down here, and Heidi Matthews always does great breakdowns of various UN rulings. Right, so what happens next in terms of enforcement? Here we look to Article 94 of the UN Charter. We can likely expect to see a resolution tabled at the Security Council to give effect to this order to end the assault on Rafah. The big question, of course, is whether the U.S. will use its veto, which, of course, I'm sure they will. That said, this is not simply the end of it. There is going to be, we've already seen, I was going to save this for later, but Norway, Ireland, and Spain have already recognized a Palestinian state. This is recently on May 22nd. So other countries, putting the U.S. and, say, the U.K. and Canada aside, many countries are beginning to change their relationship with Israel based on what has occurred over the past 6+ months. Now, I also want to share this was recently after the ICC ruling, which I covered earlier this week, where Prime Minister Netanyahu put out this message calling it an outrageous decision by the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan to seek an arrest warrant against him. What I found really funny about this, Karim Khan. Here's an article from 2021. UK's Karim Khan elected next ICC prosecutor will replace a controversial prosecutor set to be Israel's preferred candidate. So, apparently, Karim Khan was Israel's preferred candidate, but now this is an outrageous decision. Yeah, life comes at you fast. So I want to share this because I got an accompanying video. I'm very sick. Give me a break here. Man, I could barely get words out. But I want to play this clip. This is just fun to watch.
So we, hopefully, together will find a way to register our displeasure with the ICC. Because if they'll do this to Israel, we're next. This group tried to come after our soldiers. Yeah, you can clap all you want to.
An applause after Lindsey Graham warns that, we may be next because of our war crimes if we allow the ICC to go on with their seeking of an arrest warrant for Netanyahu. Just amazing. But I want to share this both because it's fun, but also because, according to Ryan Grimm, Lindsey Graham apparently had recently met with Karim Khan. And I want you... I don't know for sure if Lindsey Graham is the guy who he's referring to here. We don't know. But based on Lindsey Graham and who Lindsey Graham is and the garbage he says, it would be okay to speculate that potentially this is who was talking to Karim Khan when he heard this.
And of course, I've had some elected leaders speak to me and be very blunt. This court is built for Africa and for thugs like Putin, was what one senior leader told me. We don't view it like that. This court is the legacy of Nuremberg. This court is a sad indictment of humanity. This court should be the triumph of law over power and brute force. Grab what you can, take what you want, do what you will. And we're going to simply be, we're not going to be dissuaded by threats or any other activities, because in the end we have to fulfill our responsibilities as prosecutors, as the men and women of the office, as judges, as the registry.
Think of how morally bankrupt you have to be to think that the International Criminal Court is simply for Africa or Putin and not for international standards, international rule. This idea that whether it's Israel, whether it's the U.S., they should be above the ICC completely undermines the entire point of having international order.